I am Zosimos of Panopolis, born amidst the ancient whispers of the Nile. My existence woven into the fabric of a humble family's lineage. From the earliest days, an insatiable curiosity stirred within me, propelling me toward the sacred halls of the local temples. Glorious temples that called to me. Within those stone walls, I delved into the esoteric teachings and the mysticism ingrained in the rituals of our ancestors. Yet, my intellect hungered for truths beyond the temple's teachings, urging me to venture beyond the familiar and into the vast expanse of Egypt. The calling was deep within me, like an instinct that grew stronger every day. And so I set out across the land. My pilgrimage took me to all corners of our land, seeking the wisdom of renowned sages and unraveling the secrets concealed in forgotten scrolls. Each encounter left a mark on my understanding, a patchwork of philosophies interwoven into the tapestry of my evolving worldview. But I was more than a scholar. I was an adventurer at heart. The dusty roads beneath my sandals led me to distant lands where the kaleidoscope of cultures unfolded before my eyes. I took in all the various cultures and knowledge as something sparked within me. From the markets of Athens to the serene monasteries of India, I absorbed the myriad hues of human experience, my heart pulsating with the rhythm of adventure. Of course, political intrigues and affairs became threads woven into the fabric of my journey. My charisma and wit became tools in courts and councils, connecting me with rulers and rebels alike. In the dance of power and diplomacy, I left my mark, a testament to the sage whose influence stretched far beyond the banks of the Nile. As the currents of time carried me, I found my way back to Panopolis, where the echoes of my youth lingered, in a modest abode on the outskirts, surrounded by scrolls and relics from my travels. I became a beacon for seekers, my words, shaped by a lifetime of exploration, became a guiding light for scholars and monarchs and commoners alike. Now, the crossroads of my own history, I stand as Zosimos of Panopolis. The tapestry of my life unfolds before me, a legacy of a seeker who dared to unravel the mysteries of existence, inspiring those who follow in my footsteps with wisdom and courage. One day, I'll be known as Zosimos, the great alchemist, the sage, the teacher, and the echoes of my voice will be read in books across time and space. Welcome to this journey into the beyond, where we're on a little journey of discovering great alchemists of the past. Now, on this episode, we are journeying into the beyond on Zosimos of Panopolis. Now, I've heard this pronounced different ways because I did look it up to see exactly how to pronounce it. And I've heard Zosimos of Panopolis, but I'm just going to pronounce it as it rolls off my tongue, and it just sounds like Zosimos of Panopolis. He is an alchemist and an author who actually wrote one of the oldest known books on alchemy. This book was titled Chiruk Meta, which is a Greek word meaning things made by hand. How absolutely beautiful is that? Now, Zosimos lived at the ending of the 3rd century and the beginning of the 4th century. So we're in and around like 300 AD or 300 Common Era. Now, as his name states, of Panopolis or Panopolis or however you want to pronounce it, that is where he was born, which is actually modern day Akim, a city in Upper Egypt on the east bank of the Nile. Just to kind of give you a setting, I know that I personally always enjoy like being able to have an image in my mind of where we're journeying or what we're journeying in when we're journeying into something, kind of like a movie playing in my mind, kind of setting the tone and, just opening up my imagination. But yes, Zosimos, the alchemist. He was quite the alchemist. Among the various forms of knowledge being brought out during that period, and all the notions of transcendence, Zosimos' alchemy has a lot of elements to it, like including knowledge from Egyptian and Greek alchemy, Hermeticism, Gnosticism is a big one, and then a dash of spirit within all of these alchemical ways. So he kind of mixed the practical and the spiritual alchemy, which I feel like you can do with any sorts of talks about alchemy. All the symbolism in alchemy, it always spawns in my mind as, oh my gosh, inner transformation. Like, yeah, they might be talking about metals and base metals being turned into gold, but I'm seeing the spiritual transformation within, finding the gold within me. Yeah, so Zosimos had this theory or this like notion of what was called divine water. And doesn't that just sound so freaking lovely? Divine water. And also this notion of spirit or pneuma, which was involved in his alchemical process. And spirit or pneuma, let's just say that it was like a bonding factor of the practical and the spiritual alchemy, okay? Now, the divine waters can be described as one substance with two natures. The divine waters function in alchemy is like the alchemical process, the breaking down, the dissolution, and the composition, the building back up, in the process. So Zosimos gives an account on divine waters, and he says that the divine water is the all in everything, for it has life and pneuma, spirit. So yeah, you can certainly see how he took his rightful place among great ancient alchemists. He wrote a great deal of alchemical works too. Of course, though, only pieces of those works are left to this day that we know of. They might be stashed somewhere. So, some of his texts you'll find the recipe to alchemizing metals. Now, I also read this blip talking about it was said that in order for his recipes to actually work, you needed the perfect equipment, and also that it needed to be mentally purified so as to receive true knowledge. I mean, how powerful is that, right? You got to get your mind right. You got to get your mind right before you can do this alchemical process here. And I also you got to have the perfectest equipment and clean it. I mean, clean it. So yeah, it sounds like some transmutation of energy kind of going on there, right? You remember when we talked about on the last episode, I think it was the last episode, if I'm going to upload these correctly, then we talked about Maria the prophetess, or Mary the Jewess. Well, I think that she may have worked with Zosimos because, and this is just my thoughts, because in his writings, he does talk about a woman or a disciple, and even talks about the initiation to mysteries. And, I feel like they worked together or studied together when I was reading this one bit about his creations, and a certain alchemical tool keeps being talked about. Hold on. No. Okay, hold on. I think I'm mixing somebody else up. Um, no, Zosimos actually wrote about Maria the prophetess, or Mary the Jewess, the one who is famous for the axiom of Maria. If you missed that episode, make sure you go back. That one was super, super interesting, diving into her. But in these texts, he actually describes her as one of his sages, right? As not one of his sages, but as a sage. Yeah. And he spoke about her experiments and instruments. So he did learn the perfectest equipment technique. Maybe he even learned it from her, right? Oh, great sage. I'd say that is absolutely possible. I know in a lot of his writings too, he has a lot of letters to a female. I do not know how to pronounce this one, but it's Thesiobian, maybe. But I was reading into these letters, and somewhere along the lines, they were talking about the alchemy of passion. And I was like, oh, that was his girlfriend. But in another paper that I had read, it was pretty much describing a Thesobian, as that it may had been Maria, the prophetess. So, nobody really knows but them and, other alchemists that they may have hung around with back in the day. But I don't know, that's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, maybe they were like co-workers and, we're working on this alchemical process together, and then the sparks start flying. It's possible, I'm just saying. Remember that Maria felt that every metal and elements had a feminine and a masculine part. Divine waters, maybe that's what she worked with, those gender components of alchemy. The divine waters, the one substance with two parts of nature. Yeah, I can totally see that. Well, Zosimos provided one of the first definitions of alchemy as the study of the composition of waters, movement, growth, embodying and disembodying, drawing the spirits from bodies, and bonding the spirits with bodies. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a lot of feminine energetics. The movement, the flow of water, along with the masculine components, the action. Yeah, the bonding. See, he incorporated all of these great teachings and knowledge of practical alchemy and spiritual alchemy and gender qualities and hermetics and Greek alchemy into his practice of alchemy. So you've kind of got the practical side coming from like the Greek, Egyptian alchemical theory of transmutation, that there is one common matter to any metal, and that the transmutation of metals is possible because the concept that all is one. That just kind of gave me a thought. I'm probably going to have to ponder over that. Because of the spiritual side of alchemy and transformation of self, do we all have one common root that needs to be transmuted in order for us to have that, spiritual growth, that transformation? I don't know. Hold on. Let me write that down. I may have to journey into that myself. So, hold, please. Yeah. One common root to transmute. All metals have the same common matter and can be transmuted because all is one. That is fascinating. Yeah, I'm going to have to ponder deeper into that one. That just sparked something inside of me. All right. So, yes. Basically, the standard basis is that in order for a metal to be transmuted, it has to be broken down to its prime matter. Oh, more thoughts. What are we at our core? Okay, don't get sidetracked. Stay the course, Chris. So yes, break down the metal, break it down to its prime matter, and apply a volatile agent which would produce the qualities of a new metal transmutation. Boom, right? Well, Zosimos worked with volatile and non-volatile agents. One he calls the body or soma, and the other the spirit or pneuma. Now, there are a lot of references in his work that actually talk about the spirit. So basically, sorry, my nose is itching really bad. So basically, he holds the spirit responsible for transformation of the metals. Clouds and vapors are described in some texts on pneuma or the spirit. In the chapter in one of his texts on those that withstand the four bodies according to Democritus, he says, a cinnabar is boiled with species. It does not lose its pneuma. For as its pneuma is caused to run, that is, cloud is caused to run by means of fire. And as cloud flees, it gets captured by the bodies which are chasing it, and they are of the same nature with it. And most of all, it is captured by 10. And what's interesting about this is that the spirit does not leave, not even in, the transmutation to another metal. Now, I'm not into making metals, but I am all about alchemy in the spiritual sense. And this to me really speaks volumes to my spirit. Like the transformation of us, like we have always been what and who we are at our core. And as we progress and as we evolve and as we transmute and as we transform, that spirit of us always stands, The nature of that is always with us. And so speaking of the spiritual aspect, for Zosimos, he did use a spiritual conversion in his alchemy. Now, this spiritual part I read comes from his knowledge of Hermetics and Gnostic teachings. The idea that spiritual knowledge can actually lead to transformation, liberation. And for Zosimos, you have that redemption and salvation. His alchemy has actually been called sacred technology. And what does this sacred technology get you? Well, the awakening of the divine spirit that exists within us, which will help us to return to the divine. According to the Gnostics, there is this divine spark in us, in each and every one of us, which is also designated as pneuma or spirit, the divine spark. I feel like I felt this spark and the energy of it. The messages about it and the messages that it carries for years now. So, this is all very interesting to me. In a book by Kurt Rudolph, it had said that the divine spark had proceeded from the divine world and has fallen into this world of destiny, birth, and death, which must be reawakened through its own divine counterpart in order to finally be restored. We must wake up the divine spark within us. Yeah. This idea also was written by Zosimos in the text called The Final Count, where he says, sit calmly at home, and God, who is everywhere and not confined in the smallest place like the demons, will come to you. And being calm in body, calm also your passions, desire and pleasure, and anger and grief about the 12 portions of death. In this way, taking control of yourself, you will summon the divine to come to you, and truly it will come, that which is everywhere and nowhere. It's kind of like he was saying, prepare yourself to awaken or to receive this divine spark, this divine element. I feel like this may be part of that mental clearing too that was spoken about with the perfectist equipment, because he says that the restoration of the divine spark, the divine spirit, is a prerequisite, and that it will actually aid in the aspects of alchemy. Yeah. So as you can see, the pneuma, or the spirit aspect, was very, very important to Zosimos' alchemical journey, right? Another part of his alchemy is that of Gnostic myth, the pneumatic man, the spiritual man, the one that awakens the spirit, or the divine spark. You see, in Gnosticism, there are 3 categories of humans: pneumatics, psychics, and hylics, or spiritual, material, and animal. Basically, the pneumatics could escape the doom from the material world by the transcendent knowledge of the divine spark. So for Zosimos, the pneumatic man, or spiritual man, was like the inner man, and was seen as light. And the outer man was called Adam of the flesh, or Adam of the flesh. And it was like the outer mold to man. I hear it's simply not who you are, this flesh, this meat suit, as some has described it. It's not who you are. You are that light within. And Zosimos further explains how the pneumatic man became imprisoned by the Adamic body. He says that man was unactivated. Let me say that again. Unactivated. Man was unactivated to clothe themselves with the Adamic body. Now, he also believed that demons and archons had a dark intent of maintaining ignorance and enslaving them, and that they would keep this knowledge from man. He also believed that Jesus, or Yeshua, came to instruct man to our spiritual nature. He believed that the goal of sacred alchemy was to liberate man from the fate of the archons, or the demons. And I also read somewhere about being a follower of that he felt you could be liberated either by seeking knowledge, or I don't remember exactly how it was worded, that you could be liberated by seeking knowledge or being a follower of like religion or a god, right? It wasn't worded that way, but that's basically the concept of it. And I was like, you know what? Something inside of me has always felt that that's true. Like, it doesn't matter what religious beliefs or text you follow by. It's almost that concept of, are you evolving? Are you recognizing and acknowledging the light within you? Becoming the light that you are, And in his thought, you can do this simply by seeking knowledge. Like, it doesn't have to be, like some religious beliefs. It's like, my way, and this is the only way. This is the only thing you can believe, no questions asked. But that seeking knowledge part, man, does that just, it sparks something. It might be that divine spark. So yeah, I mean, we can see how Gnosticism played a huge part in his alchemical path spiritually. Yeah, and you know what? He also believed that fallen angels passed the knowledge of metalworks to the women that they had married, all the knowledge of metals and the properties. This was actually an idea. This was actually an idea that was recorded in the Book of Enoch. Zosimos wrote, the ancient and divine writings say that angels became enamored with women, and descending, they taught them all the works of nature. From them is the first tradition, Chema, considering these arts, for they called this book Chema, and hence the science of chemistry takes its name. How very interesting, right? So, yeah, quite the Gnostic mystic, quite the alchemist, and quite the sage. If you want to read some of Zosimos of Panopolis, I want to say Panopolis, if you want to read some of his texts, some of the surviving texts are authentic memoirs, the Book of Keys of the Work, the Book of Pictures, the Final Quittance, letters to Thesopia, Thesopia. That's those letters that I was talking about to that female disciple who I think might be Mary the Jewess, on the evaporation of the divine water, on the letter Omega, the sulfurs, the visions of Zosimos. Yeah, so go grab some of those and read in some more of Zosimos's alchemical process. He is quite the character in our history. Well, that brings this journey to an end on Zosimos of Panopolis, a great alchemist in history. Alchemy not only of metals, but, the internal alchemy. All the symbolism that it carries. The fuel. It's almost like it fuels this divine spark within us to continue to journey into the beyond and to continue to seek knowledge. Until next time, keep journeying.